Thank God it's Friday. We got a great guest to talk about important things in our community. Welcome into my State of Mind. I am Dan York. Teny returns to the program today. He actually tweeted out, he kind of retweeted one of our announcements for a program this week, and I said, Teny, we haven't talked to Teny in a while because it's always important to talk to Teny Gross. He's out there with his group, underfunded as it may be, working for the practice and study of nonviolence. In fact, that's what his institute is called. And unfortunately, we had another shooting death here in the city this week, and it's one of those things that you can never talk about on a nonchalant level. But we've had a lot of relationship conversations between law enforcement and community, and there's no better guy to be in the middle of that mix than Teny, so I'm looking forward to meeting with him tonight on my State of Mind. Friday nights are usually big audience nights, seems to me, and numbers always come back big on Friday, so thanks for watching. We appreciate that. Let's check into the rundown and see what else is on the agenda today. Yep, FBI says it was North Korea. Okay, and the president had a lot to say about North Korea and Sony. We'll talk about that. It's nice to see we've got some foreign business interest here in Rhode Island. And the governor is quick to give himself a pat on the back. One of the funniest television moments I've seen in quite some time, and you'll see it this weekend on Newsmakers. And we've got this is an optic problem that I pointed out on the radio today that people reacted to that I think I will share with you today. And another chapter in the dismantling of the Boston Celtics championship team, right? We'll also check your state of mind. So let's dig in. Yeah, I guess they fingered North Korea here. Oops, there I am. North Korea fingered, so to speak, my words. Here are the headlines. Yes, the North Korea responsible for Sony hack. They said they might be. They kind of hinted that they were, and now we've got it confirmed that that's exactly what the FBI has figured out. Even though they tried to kind of fool us with all sorts of tracking from foreign countries elsewhere, it seems this is the case. Now, interestingly enough, this is one of the more fascinating conversations we've had, right? Because we have a private company in Sony, publicly held but private, making its own decision to kill an $80 million already invested project, that is this movie called The Interview, which depicts the satirical attempt to, well, it's a satirical attempt to depict the assassination of Kim Jong-un. And North Korea got wind. It must be the motivation for the cyber attack. A lot of embarrassing emails that have been strewn all through Hollywood. But it's got a lot more than just, a little attack of a little company. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we got to be wary of because there could be larger ramifications for all of us with the next cyber attack. Funny, though, the president had his end-of-year press conference today and waxed poetic for quite some time on this whole Sony decision. It might have surprised you.
I am sympathetic to the concerns that they faced. Having said all that, yes, I think they made a mistake. Because if somebody is able to intimidate folks out of releasing a satirical movie, imagine what they start doing when they see a documentary that they don't like or news reports that they don't like.
You know, the president said that he wished that Sony had actually consulted with him and he would have advised them not to cancel the movie. But it's not just Sony. It's the movie houses that have decided that they don't want the security worry and all of that. Is this a tentative America and tentative Japanese company that are more fearful than the president? You know, if the president really wanted in on this conversation, you'd think that he would have picked up the phone or somebody would talk to Sony executives and say, let's work this whole thing out. It's pretty easy to say, geez, I wish they'd called me. Come on. The White House had no conversations with Sony whatsoever at all, period? Why are we having trouble believing that? Or why am I having trouble believing that? Next item here. Foreign business interest. This is good news. We celebrate good news here. We're not the negative knee bombs of negativity or whatever it is that Link Chafee will tell us the media and some of the pundits are, myself included. In Link World, there's a brand new interest from Europeans. This was kind of neat. Headline, look at this. A bunch of companies, small as they are, from Europe are thinking about doing business here, all part of the junkets that Link Chafee et al. Engaged in trying to generate a little activity for Rhode Island. And that's a good thing. He was very excited about it at the State House.
It's great to be part of this welcome wagon here, and we have the red carpet for you, and we'll help in any way we can to grow your businesses here in Rhode Island. And I know that the governor-elect is, in her term, is going to add to the flags. We're going to have more international flags coming here to Rhode Island. So
lots of energy from very high places. The governor-elect, the U.S. senators, all trying to get in on the action to generate interest for business in Rhode Island. You can say, well, that's a lot of action for a bunch of small companies and not much net benefit. But you know what? Look, if everyone's going to get in the game, get in the game. Early, middle, late. I just don't know what success is going to be, on the comeback. We need to define the success. And this small handful of companies, obviously, is a small step in that direction. But can somebody define it for me when the comeback is actually completed? Still looking for that answer. Meanwhile, got to give the governor credit for this little project, but it doesn't get him to that. On Newsmakers, which will air on channels 12 and 64, of course, over the weekend in their regularly scheduled times, and of course on WPR Providence, you can see Ted and Tim do the sign-off exit interview with Governor Chafee, and this was too much.
What letter grade would you give your tenure as governor?
When you put it in the perspective of what I inherited, 11.4.
So are we on a curve? Is that what's happening here?
Yes, and then what I absolutely adamantly fought against, 38 Studios investment, and then to hand that to me, that stink bomb that exploded on me, and as we try and grow our economy, the negative perception that gave to Rhode Island all over the country. Read about New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, Los Angeles Times. I mean, it just made the job harder. And you know how hard I argued against making that investment. So in the end, the history's going to say an A.
All right, wow. An A. And when we come back,
history will show.
Okay. The problem with Tim and Ted is they're too nice. There would have been some dead air on Dan York's State of Mind as I would have went, what? A? Okay, Governor. Thanks for your A effort. All right, next item here. Governor Coventry to North Providence. Yeah, so this Paul Labadia, who's the embattled chief of the fire in Coventry, the victim of an excellent journalistic review by Target 12, so to speak, and I say victim in quotes, of course, has kind of become the poster boy for alleged, public service corruption, with all that's been investigated there. Now he's in North Providence answering to what might be a little bit of stretch of the truth on his pension. And in front of Charlie Lombardi, the mayor, yesterday, he had to come in and offer evidence that his pension was legit. And this story could blow up into a couple different directions. But here's what caught me. Look at this WPRI.com spot here. Here's the guy in the front. Who's that? That's Labadia's lawyer. That's Labadia behind a Walputo, of course. The guy in front is his lawyer. The guy in front is John DeSimone. The guy in front is the House Majority Leader of the State House of Representatives. Look, I know we got a part-time legislature, and I know that these guys deserve to have, work. And I know that Speaker Harwood and Speaker Murphy used to represent everyday common criminals. But does it make any sense that the second in command of the House of Representatives doesn't represent the new poster boy for public corruption? Is there a chance that we could not create that optic? Is it just such a bada bing all the time around here that you just do your thing and then pretend like you're going to be some kind of white knight for creating the kind of government that we want here? Do you not think that that's a reputational problem? Do you not think that people laugh at Rhode Island that the second in command of the House is actually representing the guy that's sharing the cigar? This is on Speaker Mattiello. This is on John DeSimone. And what I worry about is that they don't get that it's on them. I hope that you do. It's embarrassing. It's disgraceful. And it's the full Rhode Island. Rondo's hitting the trail. Well, bye-bye. Off to Dallas. The Mavericks give us 5 players. What am I saying? I'm not a Celtics fan. I'm a Knicks fan. And all you Celtics fans ought to just thank heavens for the Knicks, because I think if I check the standings, they're probably the only team worse right now than the Celtics. Seems like a long time since 2008, right? We wish Rondo the best of luck. I'm a college basketball guy. You know, I can't watch the NBA until playoff time anyway. All right, viewer feedback, your state of mind. This is how you get in touch with us. Very simple. 228-1886 is the number. State of mind at MyRightTV.com. Facebook post, tweet at us. And this is a viewer who said, we need to give you an assignment, Dan.
The mayor, who is not even in yet, is planning to privatize the Providence bus monitors. I've been working there for 22 years, and it is about to fail. I would like to know if you could bring this topic up on your show.
Okay, we are doing it now. Here is the headline. I read that story today. It didn't make the rundown, but Michelle will look into it. Sometimes privatization's good, sometimes it's bad. I don't know, but you can always ask for a little help. We'll look into it, promise. When we come back, Teny Gross and important conversations about the community. Stay with us. You know, the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence plays such an important role in our community. You know, there's a big community meeting Monday night. You remember coverage of the state police and troopers actually showing up in the South End at the recreation center there, and a good crowd. And, you know, at least dialogue is reportedly continuing. I wouldn't say that it just started. I think that would be an unfair characterization, Teny, don't you think? I mean, you've had plenty of conversation with law enforcement in this community.
I mean, I think if I look back at my 25-year career, it's dedicated to reduction of violence, employment of those who come out of jail, and building a better relation with law enforcement. They're really part of our community. So, but it wasn't fast enough. So I think now there's an opportunity to bring more intensity. But I think leaders in our state like Commissioner Perry, Chief Clements, Colonel O'Donnell, have been in the forefront of doing it, and I give them credit.
And I need to mention, it didn't make my rundown commentary today, but I heard just as I was coming over between radio and TV that the new mayor will keep those guys in their place. You happy about that?
Very happy. They're a very good team. I think Commissioner Perry, as far as I'm concerned, really put a lot of focus also on the nightclub situation, which is an unnecessary and preventable part of our homicide. Professionalized. I think Chief Clements is just someone everyone likes. The Clements people don't actually know is an intellectual Clements who likes to innovate. People think of him as a cop's cop, but he's also an innovator, well educated in his field, and a really good executive.
And overdue to be here on Dan York's State of Mind. So we'll have the chief, hopefully the commissioner, in soon. A note, and it's not a nonchalant one. Sister Ann is not doing well.
Right.
Speak to that.
Well, she's in hospice care. You know, when I visit her, she still likes to joke, and that's her. And she's been a real gift to our state. You know, started about 20 organizations. That's something.
She's been important to your organization.
We wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. When they interviewed me, I interviewed them as well. She's like a mother figure to me, but to a lot of people. And what's special when I reflect back on myself here at the Institute, there's a lot of things I didn't have a clue about. And I made mistakes. And she's someone who helps you learn from your mistakes but not dictate to you. She had all the power of a founder to tell me what to do. She didn't. And that's a really unique skill that as I get older, I hope to acquire more of.
Well, God bless her, Sister Ann. She just is, she's one of those 1,000 points of light that George Bush would talk about in a community.
Right.
And her impact, yours, others, are individual signatures. They are snowflake signatures on a community. You cannot replace them, can you?
You cannot replace her. I think, though, we passed the baton. I think Native Americans always speak about it. You know, when you live here, your spirit. I think I am influenced by hundreds of people. Hopefully I influence some people. You influence them the way you handle the media. We all contribute. I mean, this country is full of good people, and that's what keeps a lot of us going and inspired.
What do you think, so, you know, God bless her, and I'm sure he has and will. Since Ferguson, since Staten Island, all the turbulence, good conversations earlier in the week, it seems to me.
Yeah.
What's the tone here? The 95 protest fits into the whole conversation, obviously, but what's your assessment of the tone here?
You know, I think often of us Israelis and Palestinians, you know, the majority wants to live together in peace, but it's some on the fringes that make it difficult. I think in the community, we don't pay enough attention on, it is more risky to be a police officer in the United States. All those guns don't just affect community, they affect the police. If I'm a police officer and we're close to them, and you go out at night and it's a call for a burglary, you might not see your wife or your kids again. So that's in their mind, and that affects that. I know that in Providence in the last 4 years, I believe there were 500,000 calls for services. There were 17 times that an officer discharged a gun, one to shoot a rabid fox, a few times a pit bull. So I don't know another profession that has such a small room for error. So that's in defense of policing. The field of policing I don't think is in question and shouldn't be. Now at the same time, where the gap is, and it's a legitimate gap, I think people fall into one camp or another. You know, people think, oh, where everyone's attacking police officers, particularly white police officers. No. And we need to highlight every time we can the risks of being a police officer and the gratitude. We have this high divorce rate, high alcoholism. It's a very stressful job. That doesn't preclude then having a discussion that what Chief Bratton said, Commissioner Bratton in New York said 4 months ago in a meeting, a small meeting I was in. He said this is his fourth city, right? He did Boston, New York, LA, he's back. He's 66 or 63. So this is it. This is my last tour. My last goal is to improve relationship with the African American community, which we have policed in the last 50 years like they're non-citizens. That is not a liberal guy. This is a tough Irish Bostonian who was the chief of the most important department. He says, and I've seen him, I was in New York on Tuesday with his deputy and a few other. He's assembled a team to look at training, look at how everyone needs to be a community police officer. There's something with class and race that sometimes we can look at some people that they're worth less. It's not a big deal if you berate people on the radio or I'm not as kind. It is a lot more dangerous an interaction if I have a gun.
We'll continue with that thought. That's pretty profound. We'll be right back. You know, picking up where we left off, Teny Gross from the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence here in the city of Providence, which is a long sentence but a really profound one, no doubt. So as you talk about Chief Bratton and his thoughts about, you know, an open discussion about African Americans in law enforcement is so necessary, and I've been trying to create that here. What is the best way? Advise me, media, the community. What's the best way, do you think, to get into the conversation?
I think you have people in the community like Kobe, Ray Watson, you know, that have been engaging in law enforcement. The police has an advisory group, a civilian advisory group. It's proximity, it's knowing each other, having personal relationship, you know. We sort of have a rule where we disagree with the police, first we got to call them. It's because of relationship, you know. You try and work on things, you know, no one is perfect. They give us the same courtesy. So partially, I think it's having certain rule of courtesy. You can't maybe always keep them, but you try to.
On a larger scale, though, about the whole audience, you know, I find on the radio side when we talk about this that, you know, Ferguson was a tough case because the facts just didn't bear out the kind of systemic discussion that we all think we want to have. Staten Island looked a little bit more obvious, and it was kind of disappointing in terms of the grand jury. But I still think white America, white Rhode Island, white New England has a little bit of difficulty just owning up to the idea that things are not necessarily equitable. Doesn't mean that we have to, you know, fall on a guilt sword for slavery, you know, but giving on that is not the end of the world. And when Bratton does, maybe it opens up the opportunity to say, all right, uncle, right? A little bit?
I mean, I think that there is a gap. I think we're more in danger in society now of being split because you can choose your own channel, right? I see that. It's internationally as well, by the way, right? Arabs that come through the State Department to the Institute, many of them have not been even accepting the idea of two-state solutions, right? Because they watch Al Jazeera, and these are people we select. So we can the gaps can grow. So I think coming back to the middle, both Republicans, Democrats, and others, it's a really important task. I'm dedicated to it. Some people say it's a sellout. It's not a sellout position. You know, we have more in common that we have that is not, and there is a risk. Now, it doesn't mean you put it under the table. We have issue with policing and race. We do. We have issues with respect to authority. We do. The way we treat teachers, police officers, and others, we need to work on that. Rather than not engage, we need to speak about that. Today, someone asked me about Ferguson. It's like, hey, he was really not a good example, the young man. I says, we don't have to wait for Rosa Parks to have this discussion.
Unfortunately, though, until you get a Rosa Parks or Michael Brown, the conversation doesn't escalate to a national level. So, I mean, it's almost as if I give people a pass for hands up, don't shoot, because we know there's an important conversation that needs to be had. Yet, I do resent, I think a lot of people do resent the idea that this police officer has got to be the guinea pig for all that's wrong with law enforcement. It's complicated, isn't it? A couple of seconds.
It's human nature. We legislate by a worst case scenario. Everyone else who violates the law often gets the sentence that someone really did heinous crime the same way. So it goes both ways.
Will you come back in 2015 often with people and their stories from the street? Because I think this community needs to know what's going on. And we got to get some more money, right? You guys are still underfunded?
Yes, we are, very much so.
How much this year?
Well, we were just looking today, the budget for street workers, we're down to 5. We used to have 17. That affects prevention.
All right, listen, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy Hanukkah. And we're going to talk a lot in 2015.
Great.
One more thing when we come back. Stay with us. You know, I've got a commitment for 2015, more real-life stories from the streets, your street. Doesn't have to be the south of Providence either, you know. So let me know, you know, whose story needs to be told, and Teny's going to bring us a bunch coming up in 2015. The story of the Phoenix and how it went down with its former managing editor, I believe, Phil Isle, Monday here on My State of Mind. You have a great weekend. Thanks so much for watching. Get your shopping done.